how many births occur to non-permanent residents on an annual basis?
Les décès des résidents non permanents sont inclus aux estimations démographiques, oui.
So, sorry, the translation didn't come through. Can we pause?
Births from non-permanent residents are included in demographic estimates, yes.
In estimates?
And in the birth recorded in Canada every year.
Okay.
Some of these applicants have purchased homes under the non-residence tax scheme, and they were promised a refund when they get their PR status. Can you speak to that, please?
About when engaged with Ms. Rempel earlier about the decline in the temporary in the non-permanent resident population. Could you speak to those points again? Could you offer more detail?
Yes, for sure. Canada experienced a record high.
You spoke in your opening remarks about C12 and constitutional vulnerability. Could you maybe expand what you were referring to there?
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on September 16, 2025, the committee is resuming its study on Canada's immigration system. It is with great pleasure that I announce our witnesses for the first hour of today's meeting. As an individual, we have Mario Bellissimo, lawyer, certified specialist, Bellissimo Law Group Professional Corporation. I don't think that you are, I think you're someone that's well known to this committee, sir. And so welcome to you. Hong Kong Watch. From Hong Kong Watch, we have Eileen Caverly, co-founder and chair. Welcome. And Stats Canada, we have Laurent Martel, Director for the Centre for Demography. Welcome. And then via video conference, we have Ron Gravel, Director General, and nice to welcome you as well.
I'll direct my questions to Statistics Canada. And the broad topic is, as a legislator, trying to understand the data on which the government is using to set immigration levels, which I now understand will be embedded within the budget, the federal budget this year. So to either rep from StatsCan, does your agency track how many temporary residents, I suppose you use the term non-permanent residents, does your agency track how many non-permanent residents access health care on an annual basis?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for that question. Well, first thing, Stats Canada uses quarterly surveys, and we use it by different departments, including IRCC, to respond to certain needs. We provide this information to the public in Canada, and
if you could answer, do you track how many non-permanent residents access Canadian healthcare or healthcare in Canada on an annual basis?
Nous avons des différentes statistiques sur la...
We have different statistics on health. Hospitalization rates for various categories of the population. And in Statistics Canada, we don't have data available on the costs incurred for these services.
How many non-permanent residents access health care? Like just numbers?
No, I don't.
You don't?
J'ai pas ces chiffres-là.
Okay, it took me 2 minutes to get there.
No, we don't have those numbers.
How many births occur to non-permanent residents on an annual basis?
Les décès des résidents non permanents sont inclus aux estimations démographiques, oui.
So, sorry, the translation didn't come through. Can we pause?
Births from non-permanent residents are included in demographic estimates, yes.
In estimates?
And in the birth recorded in Canada every year.
Okay, so, and for non-permanent residents, this would be not visitors to Canada, this would be, okay.
Exact.
How many births occurred to non-permanent residents in the last year?
J'ai pas le chiffre en tête actuellement.
I don't have the number offhand, but I can't give you the information. Yes, we'll follow up with that. Yes, we will.
Do you track how many individuals are currently in Canada on an expired work permit or visa?
Le nombre précis, non.
For a specific number, no. But people who are in the process of renewing these work permits are part of the calculation.
Or on expired work. A recent Sun article discussed that Canada's population growth might be 3 times higher than Ottawa has estimated because a large number of people who were supposed to be in Canada or leave the country aren't being tracked. How hard would it be for your agency to get a list of expired permits from IRCC each week and run it against your entry and exit system?
La base de données d'entrée.
The in country, out of country is a Statistics Canada. We do receive IRCC on a monthly basis, but weekly we don't have an agreement with between StatsCan and IRCC.
There was an article on Blog Toronto. It cited a video that you were in that you said Canada's population is skyrocketing to 42 million people. Based on your analysis, does Canada have the adequate infrastructure to accept a continued level of temporary residence that we've seen in recent year? And by infrastructure, I'm talking particularly about housing and healthcare. And how would you know?
Je peux répondre à cela que la croissance démographique du Canada.
The population growth in Canada 23 to 24 was almost 3%, which is quite high when we compare that to other countries, which is a big challenge for the infrastructure in health and housing in Canada.
A lot of analysis suggests that wage growth for temporary residents is quite a bit lower than permanent residents. Would that be a correct assessment based on your analysis?
Je ne pourrais pas confirmer cette affirmation.
Well, I can't confirm that, but we know that between 2020 and 2021, immigration numbers was in fact decreasing.
Continued, based on that extrapolation, if Canada continued to accept high levels of temporary residents or residents that are unable to get credentialed, would that continue to be a drag on wages and as such economic growth?
Je ne pourrais pas répondre à cette question-là.
Well, I really can't answer that question, but the number of non-permanent residents which are admitted to Canada has been falling for the last 3 quarters, which of course modifies the proportion.
Like year over year, or perhaps not year over year, but they're high for what Canada can support. So if we have a delta, as your analysis suggests, between wage growth for temporary residents and a delta on per capita GDP growth, has the government asked you for any advice on how to model out whether or not the Canadian economy does actually benefit from this bit of a myth that we need high levels of immigration to sustain economic growth?
That's time. A very quick response, please.
On n'a pas eu de requête en ce sens.
We haven't had any requests for that, but the demographic growth in Canada has slowed considerably over the last 3 quarters. And if we extrapolate that over years, the population might fall. This particular group of population might be less than 1.5% compared to 2024, which was 3%.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to all the witnesses for coming before the committee today. My first question is for Ms. Calverley from Hong Kong Watch. From your organization's perspective, what are the main factors contributing to the processing delays in the Hong Kong Pathway Program? Is it primarily a resource issue within IRCC, security screening bottlenecks, or document verification challenges just specific to Hong Kong?
Thank you very much. The problem actually is not resources, it's the emission targets. So very obvious because a lot of Hong Kongers, they have received AIP. So the application actually ready to go, just need to have the slot, the quota. And then IRCC will send them CPP, and then they can start to become like a PR. So the process. I think the problem was like when the whole temporary public policy started in 2021, we were told that there's no limit. To me, it's like, how could you possibly, there's no limit? There must be a limit. But there's no limit for work permits, or you come in as a student, but then after you fulfill the requirement, you have to apply for PR via Stream A or Stream B, but then there's a limit. Suddenly, there's a limit. And we were told the limit actually, like for this year, 10,000. But that's also cover other special policy came after Hong Kong pathway, like for Sudan, Ukraine, and also Afghanistan. So all this public policy, they should have its own allocation rather than all the new created public policy put under HNC. HNC always with very limited emission target, like last year 13,800, this year 10,000. Next year could be 5,000. Right? But then we got like at least 50, 60,000, maybe more in the stream under HNC. So it's unsustainable. And I think for Hong Konger, this is like they didn't expect. Because when they apply, if Canada say that the limit only 10,000, so first come, first serve, so that's it. That's much easier, right? But then there's no limits. And then when they're here, a lot of them, they spent 4 years here already. They pay taxes working, and then they study, they pay tuition fee, and then they apply HNC. And they start from there now, we need to wait for 10 years. So this is really a big problem for all the applicants. And also they are on only temporary work permits.
What impacts have these delays had on the applicants whose applications are in the system, for example, on their employment or study opportunities in regards to family unification or personal safety? And how have these differed between the open work permit and permanent residence streams?
So all the delay is huge to them because as temporary resident, you can sometimes, some jobs, they only take PR. And some of the applicants, they are high flyer. They're from U.S., Ivy League from U.S. So Hong Konger, and they make 260,000, paying 80,000 taxes. They need to travel around the world for that job. But because she is still temporary resident, so she cannot fly around. So without PR, this kind of job actually not possible for Hong Konger. And also, when the work permit will expire within 3 years, that's a big trouble for these people because a lot of them, like the work permit expire next year, they have applied this year. And then they rely on maintained status. But some employer, I think, need IRCC education. A lot of employers don't take maintained status. They don't understand that. They only look at your work permit, so it's expired, that's it. And also, like some applicants, they may change jobs. They may, move to another job. It's not possible. Yeah, when your work permit less than 6 months, a lot of employer won't take that. And also with IRCC errors as well, they reject them because of LMIA. So like for Hong Kong pathway, you don't need LMIA. But they were rejected, no appeal system. So I think appeal system is important. Or someone, they have not submitted a form 5707. Actually, it's not on the checklist. They were rejected. And then they have to reapply again. That takes 8 months. So that's why a lot of family, they have no status in Canada, but they cannot go back to Hong Kong because of political reason or because they're still waiting for PR. You're not supposed to leave the country. Where can they go? They have no legal status. But waiting for PR another 10 years, a lot of Hong Kong...
1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have 1 minute. So just keeping in mind that resources are limited and there are many urgent cases around the world. So what specific policy or operational changes would you recommend to reduce the processing time and restore confidence in this program for the Hong Kongers?
I think because a lot of Hong Kong are going via Stream B, they have work experience, but they cannot meet for example, express entry for 500. So I would recommend that we can lower down that to like matching healthcare or STEM, STEM. So then we can fast track at least a few thousand applicants can go via express entry.
When the Hong Kong Pathways program was launched in the summer of 2021, Hong Kongers were made a promise by the Liberal government. Many vulnerable families then used up their life savings to support the initial years in Canada, hoping that this was an investment in their future. Ms. Coverley, has the Liberal government made good on their promise on the legitimately vulnerable people in Hong Kong Pathways program?
Well, I think we are very grateful with this scheme. So I must say we are very grateful with the Liberal government. I think for the year, a lot of Hong Kongers came to Canada because of this scheme. We were very happy until last year. So a lot of Hong Kong people in our community very disappointed because we were told it's unlimited. Although it's not really a lot of people applying. Like, for example, the UK BNO scheme, we got 230,000 going to the UK. In Canada, now we got 20,000 cases stuck and another 12,000 already approved. We're talking about 32,000 cases. We're not talking about tons of people like flooding Canada. So actually, it's not a lot of people. So they choose Canada because they like Canada. They like Canada more than another country. So that's why they're here. And they contribute to the society already. Hong Kong people, they are very entrepreneurial. And they don't rely on the system or any benefit. They contribute and they pay taxes. So I would tell you that, reply to Michael Ma MP, they are very disappointed with the government right now, especially when they enter the submission date after. If you submit after July 2024, the answer is you have to wait for more than 10 years. How can they be happy?
Great, thank you. And so for those in the Hong Kong Pathways, are net contributors to our society, as you mentioned earlier. They are paying international tuition, mortgages, or rents while waiting for PR. Does your organization have any data on the consolidated economic footprints of those in Hong Kong Pathways to Canada?
Majority of the new immigrants from Hong Kong via Hong Kong Pathway, they are young professional. They're between 25 to 35. I would say we don't have official number, but they are, the contribution is very good because they are mainly in finance, IT, AI, and also engineering industry. So, and they paying high taxes. I think some unofficial number, they're paying average much higher taxes than average Canadian. And their average salary, even as a temporary resident, are much higher than the average in Canada.
Following that, I understand some of these applicants have purchased homes under the non-residence tax scheme, and they were promised a refund when they get their PR status. Can you speak to that, please?
This is very, very devastating situation because before 2024 February, the application timeline is only 6 months. Like if back to 2022, 2 months. So that's why they purchase home and they pay extra taxes of over $200,000 to $500,000 taxes. And some of them, they already lost this money. And a lot more people will lose this kind of money next year if the PR application continue to be delayed. I feel so sorry for this family, because they actually need this money for resettlement, or they can reinvest in businesses in Canada. But now all this money is stuck into the tax, and there's no rebate.
Okay, very quick question then. I was shocked to hear in the early October that processing time have now changed. I think you have mentioned. So under this Liberal government, can you walk us through the substantial changes in your organization in terms of the processing times that you're seeing?
Well, this is huge because like we will receive 500 emails in our system because people asking for help because they say, I cannot wait for 10 years. So they need help. And also, especially if the work permit is about to expire, they're very frightened. And we have received quite a lot of rejection cases. We hope that we can pass on the rejection cases so that the MP can help them. because they need the status to continue to work.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you to witnesses for being here today. I'm going to ask Mr. Martel, and then I'll go to Mr. Bellissimo. Mr. Martel, you talked about a change in population recently, Canada's population going down substantially, and you also spoke about, when engaged with Ms. Rempel earlier, about the decline in the temporary in the non-permanent resident population. Could you speak to those points again? Could you offer more detail?
Yes, for sure. Canada experienced a record high. En fait, je m'exprime en anglais, mais je vais le formuler en français. Le Canada.
Canada has seen a record population growth in 23, 24, and it was as high as we've seen in the major part of this growth was linked to international immigration and not national birth here in Canada. For the last 3 quarters, October last year onward, we've had significant reduction of these numbers for temporary immigration. And those targets were reduced by IRCC based on a reduction of a global population in Canada. In the second quarter of 2025, it was 0.1% as growth. But if that would be annual, that would be less than 0.5%. So the diminution of the Canadian population has really fallen in the last couple of months.
And thank you to the witnesses for being here. Mr. Bellissimo, you spoke in your opening remarks about C12 and constitutional vulnerability. Could you maybe expand what you were referring to there?
So I think that's in respect to any time we set timelines as it relates to refugee claimants, 14 days, 1 year, you risk losing an individualization of the process, and the fact that they may not then have a hearing before removal, even though they might go through the pre-removal risk assessment process, has constitutional vulnerability, as does some of the potential data sharing that, albeit some of it has now been tabled in C2, but in C12, that kind of data sharing does get into some privacy concerns and risks pushing us back.
So in your opinion, that C12 is at risk of being constitutionally challenged?
Yes, I believe it is, as it currently reads.
Okay, thank you. You were here, I think, last Parliament a number of years ago, and you talked, I think what I recall the discussion was about approving technology and things like that were needed. And since then, we've had this massive failure on the part of the government with asylum claims and the lack of managing the system, which has led to people being almost compelled to do asylum. And I guess my question for you is, do you see a strain being put on the system partly because of that? And are there some changes that you think should be made in terms of technology?
Yeah, I think, as I referenced in my previous response, I think we need to leverage the technology to control intake versus output. We can have wonderful policy ambition, but if it's not tied to administrative capacity and basically an operational ethos of communication, transparency, and facilitation, we're going to continue to have runaway inventory, disappointed applicants, and basically damage to our global brand. So I think there's a wonderful opportunity leveraging that technology to bring that to ground and move forward in a much more coordinated way.
Part of the needs in a country like Canada is to be able to track people when they exit the country. Do you have any knowledge, or are you aware of any system that Canada uses to maybe track that, or do you think that Canada has the ability to do exit tracking?
Yeah, 1 minute left.
Yeah, they do have. They have an exit and entry system. They do track. CBSA is also developing a new tool called TCI, which is going to potentially use predictive analytics to determine could someone not comply when they enter Canada. These are potentially good initiatives, but we've learned from other countries like New Zealand, when they've launched similar technology, it failed and it was found to not be predictive. It was found to be discriminatory. So
if I could just interrupt and you could finish off just kind of explaining the dangers of using AI and some of the kind of where you're going here? Like, what are the dangers of implementing some of that technology?
The dangers are if the predictive analytics are used in a way that places people in digital prisons that are not unique to them, that are based on widespread characteristics. We move in areas where we've seen internationally, and in some cases, in the criminal context here in Canada, where we can run afoul of privacy and proper identification and proper predictive work because the technology is not there yet. That's why we need those guardrails, legislative guardrails.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Thank you, Mr. Reddicock.